everybody, I'm Noelle from Petitti Garden Centers, and we're here at our Oakwood Village store, and we are going to do a spotlight on brambleberries. If you're not familiar with brambling type berries, we're talking about raspberries, and we're also talking about blackberries. Both of them are actually in the rubus family, so you might see rubus every once in a while on the tags or whatnot, and actually rubus, or the raspberries, blackberries, are part of the rose family as well. So huge rose family, rose ACE. So today, what do you need to know to grow your berries successfully? It's very easy, easier than you think. And I always tell folks, it's so great to grow these types of fruiting shrubs at home because they are a lot less expensive when you grow your own fruit at home. And again, when you go to the grocery store and are paying, $5 for a little pint, it's kind of crazy. So they're very, very easy to grow home. Starting out with full sun conditions. Absolutely 6 or more hours of direct sunlight on these plants. You have to have it, okay? The next thing that you need is well-drained soil. They do not do wet and heavy wet clay. Did I say wet? They do not do well in heavy wet clay, which of course, folks, depending on our season, it might be wet, it might be dry, but we usually have a lot of clay in Northeast Ohio that we need to deal with. So make sure that you are mending the soil when you're planting these plants. You can put a Spoma soil perfector in that soil to help with drainage. You can mound them up a bit to make sure, again, that you're getting good drainage through a raised mounded area. That's fine too. And also use compost around them. They love to have natural organics around the base of their plants. So that's a really good thing too. They have very shallow root systems, so just be aware. They can take a little bit of dry or drought conditions, but it is really good to mulch them, at least 1 inch, if not 2 inches of mulch around them, or compost, that would be fine too, so that they do retain the moisture in the soil that they do need. Okay. Watering wise, average watering. It can be average to slightly dry. When they do start developing, of course, you want to have adequate moisture for those fruit to really develop nicely for you. So again, 1 inch of water, 1 time per week. Slow, deep watering is always best. And if you get a 1/2 inch rainfall, just supplement with a 1/2 inch of irrigation to achieve that 1 inch of water during the week. Fertilization is really easy. In fact, Spoma makes it very easy for the berries. They have berry tone. Berry tone is very similar to holly tone, so you could use one or the other, berry tone or holly tone. Apply it twice per season, once in the spring after you get done with some pruning, and we do have a pruning video on raspberries, on blackberries, so feed them after you're done pruning. And then the next time would be mid-summer when you're gonna do a nice feeding for them, and they'll be ready to go throughout the season, okay? With these guys and maintenance, again, pruning's a little bit complicated. It doesn't have to be, but there are a couple things that you need to know about brambles, okay? And typically their roots and their crowns are true woody shrubs, okay? But their canes or branches that grow up are biennials, okay? So if you're familiar with a classic biennial like foxglove, for example, the first year is the foliage year where that plant will grow and produce a lot of foliage and look really leafy for you. Same thing with brambleberries. The second year is usually that flowering and fruiting year, okay? And that's where you're gonna see a lot of fruit. And then guess what? Those canes or branches, they die completely back. So they really only last for 2 years. Now, to make this a little bit easier, we always advise with pruning, okay, with your berries, if they have fruited and you've harvested that fruit, cut that portion of the plant back, okay? So with ever-bearing types of raspberries, for example, sometimes they'll produce fruit just on the tips of their first year canes. And so there you just are removing the tip of that cane because that's where it fruited. If you're removing a second year cane that is fruited all the way up that cane, you'll notice you're just going to remove that entire thing down to the ground. So that's after they're finished fruiting, after you've harvested. You can tell what part of that plant has fruited. If you forget to cut them back in the fall for whatever reason, that's fine. In the spring, you're going to do the exact same cleanup. So you're basically going to remove any of those fruited areas on the plant material. You're going to remove anything that's weak, thin, gray, and the 3Ds, of course, so that diseased, damaged, or dead areas in these plants. And you'll be ready to go. Feed and go, okay? So if you have more questions about pruning, just watch our pruning videos on that. Okay, now with attributes, these plants are amazing as far as attracting pollinators. Believe it or not, raspberry flowers and blackberry flowers have a high nectar content, and their nectar is also very high in sugar. So you're never going to have a problem attracting pollinators. But what we'd always suggest is underplant or plant other pollinator plants around these to bring in more pollinators for your berries. They are self-fruitful, okay? So they don't necessarily need multiple plants, but like most fruiting type trees and shrubs, if you have more than one plant planted in the area, that's going to increase your yields, increase your quality of your fruit, and of course, bringing in the pollinators is again going to, and is proven to increase the quality and the yield of the fruit as well. So just be aware of that. You really do want pollinators around. Growing more than one variety of raspberry or blackberry is also a good thing to do. Okay, let's talk about other attributes. So fairly rabbit resistant, so that's nice. I can't say that they're deer resistant though, so make sure, and the birds will eat your berries as well. So make sure you don't forget your netting. So you want to make sure that you're netting your fruiting shrubs, of course, so the wildlife doesn't eat all of your berries, your hard work there. The next thing that you need to know is they're just great edible plants. And like I said, usually the fruit is just so soft and it expires really quickly from the grocery store. This way you have fruit being developed most of the season. And with many of your raspberries, many of your blackberries, you're looking at usually a big harvest in July. Some are a little bit later than that, and that's great. You can extend your harvest with some of the varieties. So again, planting multiples of different varieties is a good thing. Okay. Now, most of the varieties that you'll see with the raspberries and the blackberries now are going to be pretty easy for home growers to grow. The reason being is that many of them are selected and bred because they have upright growth, let's say. So you don't have to stake them. They're just strongly upright. So no need for stabilization or support. That's great, okay? The blackberries, there are many varieties. In fact, I think most of the varieties we grow now and offer are thornless. So it's easy to get in there and harvest the fruit, not get poked and pinched, and going ahead and pruning as well. So handling these guys is a dream. Some of the raspberries, you still have to watch out. There are quite a few thorns and thorny stems on these guys. Foliage just underneath the foliage is thorny too. So do watch out for that. But again, many of them have these improved qualities to them. Okay. With raspberries, you can tell that there are a couple different varieties here. So what I have here in the front is I have a compact type. It's called Raspberry Shortcake. Raspberry Shortcake is a thornless variety, so very, very smooth stems, okay, wonderful. It was bred to be grown in a container, which you most certainly can do, no problem. And you can really do that with any of your berry shrubs, no problem. You can grow them in a container. You just have to make sure that you're protecting them over the winter season, right? So making sure that you're bringing them close to the home, making sure you can even put them in the garage over the winter as well. You want to wait to do that until it's very late in the fall. The foliage has turned, the foliage has fallen, and then you go ahead and put them in winter protection mode. If you bring them into the garage, of course, make sure that you're watering just lightly about once a month over the winter months, okay? Other than that, planting this guy outside, no problem. In the soil, no problem whatsoever. But it stays really nice and compact. So raspberry shortcake is really going to be around the 1 to 2 foot mark, tall and wide. It's really not a big plant. Very, very nice. Will bramble, obviously, if you put it in the ground, will stay contained if you keep it in that container. So keep that in mind. But beautiful red berries, no problem whatsoever. And fairly ever blooming. It's going to kind of keep on blooming, keep on producing for you throughout the season. So not one time does it produce a really heavy crop, but really, really beautiful, tasty berries, kind of a medium size, and has a little bit of vanilla taste to it as well. So different, but really, really cool, just for the fact that it's very compact, very nice. The other two regular type of raspberries that you'll see around are everbearing types. So you've heard of heritage raspberry before. You've heard of, maybe this is a newer one, this is coho. Coho was named after the coho salmon, and it's really because of the coloring of the berry. Very beautiful pink coloring on this one. They're sort of everbearing where they do produce a summer crop, but they'll continue to bloom and produce that later season fall crop. So again, just as long as you're pruning after they've fruited, removing those areas and then letting the new strong areas come out and develop, no problem with coho. The one in front of me is a very popular summer bearing variety. This is called Lantham. So Lantham, Meeker, Encore, all of those are kind of up and coming, if you will, but they're all summer bearing. So you're going to get a nice big crop, usually July, August, that type of time window, if you will. Beautiful foliage here, lots of berries, as you can see throughout this shrub, really nice. Usually your larger shrub varieties are going to produce that larger berry type. Your compact shrub variety is going to be a little bit smaller, but still very, very productive. Okay. Now, over on blackberries here, you can tell there's a little bit difference in kind of the structure of these plants. However, one is not necessarily better than the other. It's really personal preference. Down below, I have Columbia Giant. And Columbia Giant, you have to see it for yourself. The berries are enormous. So if you enjoy blackberries, this is going to be a really great plant for you. Again, thornless stems, no problem whatsoever, but the berries are almost 2 inches long. They are big. So we're going to show you those. This one here has a little bit more open upright habit. This is actually Navajo, and Navajo's a really consistent, really reliable variety. Beautiful red stems on this. The blackberries look like red raspberries right now. They just haven't ripened all the way yet this season. But again, full, just chock full of berries. Absolutely gorgeous, really, really productive, okay? This one right here is Triple Crown. And Triple Crown to me has really beautiful foliage, very, very thick upright stems. So again, with this plant, it kind of developed more below, and then these are gonna be those second year stems that are really gonna fruit and develop very well for you next year. And these are the ones that develop this season. So again, lots of different varieties, really, really great, easy to grow in the garden. Little bit of pruning maintenance, don't get me wrong, but it's not hard if you know where the plant produced for you the previous season. Just remove those areas, thin out anything that's weak, diseased, damaged, or dead, and then make sure that you're feeding them, applying some compost around their root system, keeping that root system cool because again, it's very shallow, so don't let it dry out with some mulch, and you're ready to go. Enjoy.